In the town of Frederick, Colorado, real estate agent Shanann Watts was enjoying her evening after an open house, texting her husband Chris about their two young daughters as she made plans for the following day. It was August of 2018, and the pair would soon celebrate their third wedding anniversary. And everything in Shanann's life seemed to be going well. But in reality, there was tension growing between the couple. Chris had been having an affair, and while he initially ended it when he learned that Shanann was pregnant, he had since reconnected with his mistress. Chris had even talked about getting a divorce. But when Shanann returned from her business trip that Friday evening, she had no idea that her husband was lying to her. And when he told her he wanted to talk about something important, she agreed. But that night would be the last time anyone saw her alive. At 5:40 p.m., Shanann texted her friend, "I'm so tired. I can't wait to go to bed." An hour later, she sent another message saying, "What do you think?" And then came a text from Chris, "Come to the backyard when you get a chance." Just before 7 p.m., Shanann replied, "Okay," without any further explanation. All the while, Shanann's mother, Son, was flying back to Colorado from North Carolina. She had planned the trip weeks ago, but now that she was on the plane, she couldn't help but wonder why her daughter was suddenly messaging her about being tired and going to bed early. And just before 10:20 p.m., Chris posted a photo on Instagram of himself drinking a beer while sitting next to an empty high chair. He captioned it, "Date night." But all the while, Shanann was nowhere to be seen. At 10:30 p.m., Shanann's mother landed at Denver International Airport, where she called her daughter several times, but there was no answer. Then she tried calling Chris. "I knew something was wrong because it went straight to voicemail," she said. And when she asked to speak to someone else, she heard a voice say, "We're not available to talk right now." But in the early hours of August, something strange happened. At 3:30 a.m., Chris called his boss and told him that Shanann had left for her mother's house, but she never made it there. In fact, at around the same time, he also called Shanann's mother and told her the same thing. But police suspected there was more to the story. When they examined Chris's cell phone, they found that he had actually called Shanann 50 times between midnight and 3:30 a.m., but she never picked up. And when officers arrived at the Watts family home, they noticed that the garage door opener was missing. That's strange because if Shanann had indeed gone to her mother's house, she would have needed the garage door opener to get in. But Chris insisted that Shanann had taken the girls on a spontaneous trip to see her mother, and she didn't need the opener. But when officers checked the security footage from inside the house, they found that Shanann had never left. They then obtained a search warrant and discovered some very disturbing things. In the master bedroom, police found blood in the closet and on the carpet. And then they went to the basement where they uncovered more bloodstains, along with some women's clothing. Meanwhile, outside the home, they found a muddy blanket and garden hoe. And it wasn't long before Chris began to crack. He agreed to a TV interview, and during the segment, he looked directly into the camera and said, "Whoever did this, I hope they get caught. And I hope they feel what I'm feeling right now." Which is an unimaginable amount of sadness, anger, brokenness, emptiness, loneliness. But when police saw what Chris was doing behind the camera, they became suspicious once again. In the background, Chris kept touching his face and neck, moving his lips and looking off camera. And when the cameras stopped rolling, his body language shifted immediately. He put his hands in his pockets, stood taller, squared his shoulders, and smiled. Meanwhile, people began coming forward with strange stories. One neighbor said she saw Shanann walking alone through the neighborhood around 6:30 a.m. on August, and another claimed that she had seen a man carrying a large object out of the garage and putting it in the back of his truck. On August 13th, 10 days after Shanann disappeared, Chris called the police and told them that he had buried something in the backyard. But after searching the area, they were unable to find anything. In reality, he had led them to the wrong spot. Then, on August 21st, police confronted Chris about some inconsistencies in his story, and he admitted that he had not been completely honest with them. This time, he said that he had put Shanann in the car and then struck her head multiple times. But when she still didn't stop breathing, he called his mistress for help. So the two drove the body to an ATM, withdrew $300, and then used it to buy concrete. They returned to the house where they covered Shanann's body with the concrete in the basement. But as the story goes, when Chris was telling police this, he paused and added, "That's not the full story." He said that after killing Shanann, he placed her body in the truck and drove to a remote oil site where he worked. There, he hid the body in an oil tank. Meanwhile, he claimed that he had killed the girls by smothering them, but police noticed that he wouldn't meet their eyes, and they knew that he was lying about one very important thing. Chris was scheduled to take a polygraph test, but he failed to show up. When they searched the oil tanks, they discovered Shanann's body, along with the bodies of her daughters, Bella and Celeste. But it turned out that Chris had lied about how he killed them. He said that he smothered Bella first, then Celeste, and finally Shanann. But when investigators opened Shanann's casket, they found that she had been strangled with a ligature, which contradicted Chris's claim that he smothered her. And when they examined the other two caskets, they discovered that Bella and Celeste had also been strangled. Chris then changed his story once again. This time he said that Shanann had been abusive, and that's what triggered him to kill her. But his confession raised more questions than it answered. He told police that on the morning of August, Shanann woke him up and began screaming at him. He said that he got up, walked downstairs, sat on the couch and contemplated killing himself or calling the police. But he ultimately decided to call the police. He claimed that Shanann then pushed him and said, "Do it, call the cops, see if they'll believe you." He said that he struggled with Shanann, during which time she scratched his face, leaving behind the cuts and bruises that were visible in the TV interview. He said that he then pushed her and accidentally hit her head on the floor, after which he smothered her until she died. He claimed that he did the same thing to Bella and Celeste. But all of this was clearly a fabrication. For starters, Shanann was 5 months pregnant, so why would she be abusing her husband? And why would she strangle him during the struggle? Moreover, why did Chris wait 15 hours to report her missing after claiming that she had attacked him? But perhaps most importantly, why did he stage the scene in the basement if he had actually killed Shanann in the living room? Police also knew that Chris was hiding something when they found his mistress's text messages. In one exchange, she wrote, "You better be sure that I'm not involved in any of this. You know that I'm not like the others, right?" And Chris responded, "Yes, babe, thank you. I'm sorry. I promise you will be cleared." And all of this brings us back to that fateful morning. Did Shanann somehow attack her husband, leading to the accidental deaths of her and her daughters? Or did Chris Watts murder his entire family, staging the scene to look like a crime of passion? In the end, Chris was sentenced to 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole. He is currently incarcerated at Dodge Correctional Institution in Wisconsin, and the case remains one of the most haunting family crimes in recent memory. Thank you for watching. I want to know what you think. Do you believe that Chris Watts acted alone? Comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to share and follow for more true crime content.